welcome to this edition of the program. I'm John Luck. We start off with the COVID-19 pandemic, which has surpassed the 4 million mark for total cases in the United States. Meanwhile, in the state of Massachusetts, the numbers appear to be heading in the right direction, and that includes us here in Bridgewater. According to the town's website, Bridgewater has seen 0 new cases of COVID-19 over a 2-week span in the month of July. Over the past month, the town has seen active single-digit case totals. There have been nearly 6,000 people tested here in town, according to the state's count, as of July 22nd. 158 cases were released off of quarantine, and there are still 4 deaths due to the virus. Masks continue to be a hot-button issue across the country, but on July 3rd, Bridgewater police were called to a scene as an East Bridgewater man pulled a gun out on a 30-year-old male from Abington in an argument that was sparked over a mask. This all took place outside of the Walgreens in the center of town back on July 3rd. According to police reports, 59-year-old Todd Goulston from East Bridgewater pulled out a gun after a confrontation with a 30-year-old after he refused to wear a mask inside. Goulston was taken into custody but was transported to a local medical facility after complaining of a medical issue. There were no injuries, but Goulston, who does have a license to carry, was charged with assault with a dangerous weapon, disorderly conduct, and disturbing the peace. Although this is the first time a story like this has happened over a mask here in town, there have been other mask-related confrontations across the country. Odds are we've run into situations where somebody hasn't had a mask on when they needed to, especially in a place where they can't socially distance themselves. We don't want to be rude or mean when this happens, but there are some tips from doctors that may help reduce any difficult situations involving a mask. These tips come from Dr. Paul Sachs, who is the clinical director of the Division of Infectious Diseases at Brigham and Women's Hospital, and Dr. Abrar Karan, who is a Harvard Medical School physician. The first tip is choose your battles. Instead of chasing down a jogger on an open street, more attention may have to be given to someone inside of a business or a restaurant. Next, don't shame people, as it hasn't worked in past epidemics and other public health emergencies. Instead, have your mask on and serve as a sort of role model, and hope the person that doesn't have the mask on will be peer pressured into following suit and putting on a mask. Dr. Sachs goes on to say, don't sweat the small stuff. People should not be too worried about briefly passing somebody who isn't wearing a mask. Those extremely casual passes in the hallway or especially outside are not dangerous situations at all. And don't forget, another way to minimize your risk of getting the virus or spreading the virus is by washing your hands repeatedly and using hand sanitizer. Due to the pandemic and safety concerns, the annual 4th of July festivities didn't happen as we've been accustomed to. Here on BTV, we showed you some of the best moments from the past 4th of July celebrations, but one popular aspect of the day is the 4th of July parade. Some residents here in town tried to provide some normalcy and even bring some smiles to some people's faces. These horns were sounded at the Bridgewater Nursing Home on the 4th in a car parade that visited staff and patients. About 15 vehicles took part and everyone was socially distant from each other, making sure it was a safe time, and after the parade there was a cookout with hot dogs and hamburgers. As we all try to get back to normal, church services have resumed at St. Thomas Aquinas, and they are maintaining social distancing and safety protocols by holding some of their masses outside in the church's parking lot. You can see in this video taken from a recent service that the parking lot was packed with cars. Those in attendance could sit in their cars or in a beach chair, all socially distant, with sound being heard on speakers or on an FM station inside the vehicles. This was an experience that those with the church were extremely thankful for.
We're very grateful for you showing up and being able to worship with you together. It's amazing to see all of you and to be able to celebrate the holy sacrifice of the Mass with you, especially as a community.
This is awesome. Wonderful. Thank you for trusting us to be able to come here in a safe way, to be able to come together as a community of believers, to celebrate our faith, but also our connection with each other. Thank you so much for coming out here this morning.
There were masks worn during communion to maintain the safest experience for everyone there. Parking lot services take place on Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. unless there is inclement weather, and that decision will be made by 7:30 that morning. You can find out more on the church's website, stthomasaquinas.com. The MassCat Conference has blown the whistle on fall sports, which means BSU sports could be off the field for the foreseeable future. This move affects the volleyball, field hockey, cross country, men's and women's soccer, and the football teams. A decision on the winter sports season, which is set to begin in November, will be made sometime during the fall. A statement by MassCat Commissioner Angela Bauman was released, and in part it reads, Unfortunately, the highly contagious nature of the COVID-19 virus and the risk of community spread through conference competition proved too great a risk to our student athletes to engage in conference play. The football team was scheduled to start the season in less than 2 months in New York, but instead the roster of 80-plus players will be off the field. Head coach of the Bears, Joe Varia, told the Brockton Enterprise that, quote, "It's terrible. They've been working so hard in the offseason to prepare for the fall. We have 55 new kids with 12 transfers. It's probably one of the best recruiting classes and transfer groups we've ever had. You could kind of see it coming, but it doesn't make it better. You could see the kids' faces when you are telling them on the Zoom call. You could tell that the balloon burst." While Bridgewater State is in wait-and-see mode for their fall sports and when they can resume, we may have a time frame for when high school athletics, including the BR Trojans, can finally hit the field. Brian Berard has more.
Well, professional sports have finally made their way back onto our television screens. Yes, small victory. Major League Soccer is actually well on their way to completing their MLS's back tournament in Disney's Wide World of Sports complex in Orlando. New England Revolution did make it to the round of 16, but were eliminated by the Philadelphia Union. Major League Baseball started last week. The Red Sox, we're not going to really talk about their start. Just know that Major League Baseball is back, although the Miami Marlins may have a little bit of a say in that, as they had a coronavirus outbreak within their locker room, which has actually suspended several MLB team seasons. NBA and NHL will be starting off really pretty soon. Maybe the Celtics and Bruins can make a vie for their sports championships. But locally here for Bridgewater, Rainham, and Bridgewater State, slightly different story. Starting with Bridgewater State University, the Massachusetts State Collegiate Athletic Conference has decided to postpone all fall sports indefinitely because of the coronavirus outbreak. Maybe a little bit of a different tune, though, for Bridgewater Rainham's. The MIAA Board of Directors held a meeting on July 21st, and they decided that they're going to postpone the start of the fall season until September 14th. Now, as you remember back in the spring, the MIAA kept voting to postpone the start of the spring season. At one point, there was even a proposal to not even have a state championship and to end the season with the sectional championships, but soon they had to cancel the spring season. So there's a little bit of hope that fall sports could return to Bridgewater Rainham's campus. And we'll end sports, though, with some positive notes. Congratulations once again to Megan Kramer for being named an All-American, and to Bridgewater Rainham girls basketball coach Cheryl Seavey, the Massachusetts Basketball Coaches Association Coach of the Year. For the Bridgewater Review, I'm Brian Berard.
As college students get set to return to learning in the fall, we're starting to get an idea of what life will look like on the campus of Bridgewater State University. Mary Evers has more on what BSU President Fred Clark said in a recent interview.
August upon us and fall approaching, many schools, including Bridgewater State, are going through the process of figuring out the best plan to reopen. Recently, the university has made their action plan available for students, staff, and the general public so that we can all know what to expect come September. Starting for the fall semester, 90% of the classes will be online and the other 10% will be hybrid learning. This means that only the students in the 10% of these classes will be on campus periodically for in-person classes. Last week, BTV correspondent Jabbar Al-Abadi talked to Bridgewater State President Fred Clark about the academic plan in the fall semester.
You should know, and I think it's important for the people of Bridgewater to know, that 90% of our classes will be 100% online. The other 10% will be hybrid. There'll be no fully in-person classes, meaning the entire class from beginning to end is in person, none. That makes us different than many of the other institutions, particularly private. So you won't see traffic, you won't see a lot of Bridgewater people milling about. And I feel good because I trust our faculty, I trust our staff to do what's necessary to deliver a high-quality education to students.
In the interview, Clark also touched on what residence life is going to look like. He says that while many students have decided to opt out of on-campus living for this semester, there will be about a 25% occupancy rate.
We've offered housing to students that had deposited, and because it's online, mostly online, many of those students have already decided not to live on campus. So we may have, on any given day, a total of somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 people on our campus. And that's down from our normal 13,000. So we're really in the range of 25%. It'll probably be even lower than that. We won't be safe. No one can guarantee safety. No one can guarantee the elimination of the coronavirus, but we'll be as safe as science allows us to be. We'll be as safe as all the best practices we've learned allow us to be. And we are going far beyond many of our peer institutions in trying to keep our community safe.
Of course, with people being on campus, the university will also have strict guidelines about social distancing and cleanliness. All students and staff members who are on campus will be required to wear masks when they are both inside and outside. Also, everyone will be tested every other week.
We do have the capacity to test every person on campus. We're going to mandate testing for our students that are in residence. I have enough tests to be able to test students that are out in the community. I don't think there'll be many, but I think that there will be some students in residence. We will offer them testing, and we can test every other week. Our partner is the Broad Institute, which is a consortium of MIT and Harvard, and the tests will be administered. And actually, these tests, the cotton swabs are only an inch or two long. They're not the long ones that seem to go to the back of your brain. And we'll have results within 24 hours, which makes it very different from what you're seeing and hearing on the news. We have a high level of confidence. If something comes back positive, we do have quarantine and isolation capacity on campus, and we will take care of those students. And of course, if it's faculty and staff, we'll be working with their health providers. In addition to that, of course, we will have a mandate on our campus for mask wearing, indoors and outdoors. And we will push hard to make sure that our students, faculty, staff wear masks if they can't be more than 6 feet apart outdoors, but definitely, even if they are beyond 6 feet indoors, they will be required to wear masks. They will be required to social distance.
For more information about BSU's Back to Campus plan, please visit bridgew.edu/COVID-19. To see Dr. Alabides' interview with President Clark in full, you can go to btvaccess.com and visit our video on demand page. For Bridgewater Review, I'm Mary Evers.
We have other news to get to, and we'll get to that after the break, including musicians continuing to play in virtual concerts as the music and the show must go on. But coming up next, we talk about mosquitoes and the risk factor they may carry to us here in Bridgewater.
In 2020, the U.S. Census will work to create an accurate picture of everyone who lives here. But why fill out the census? What is asked? And how is your information protected? The 2020 census is quick, and the questions asked are simple. They will ask how many people are living in your home, if you rent or own, and everyone's gender, age, and race. The census will never ask for your social security number, political affiliation, money, bank information, or citizenship status. If anyone asks this claiming to be from the census, they are trying to scam you. The census provides information that helps the government provide many things. For every person not counted, the city loses $2,400 in federal funding every year. It also helps determine how many representatives each state gets in Congress. Census information helps cities get grants and other money for infrastructure and road improvements, free and reduced lunch programs, childcare development, and much more. Your privacy matters. Under Title 13 of the U.S. Code, all answers given to the census are 100% anonymous by law and used only to produce statistics. All information about individuals is then kept confidential until 72 years after it was collected. How do you participate? This year, the census is offering a full online response option, along with phone and paper options. From March 12th to the 20th, there will be an invite to respond online sent to all homes, with reminders sent out if you don't respond. August through October, census workers will be out knocking on doors of those that haven't responded yet. So when the time comes, take a few minutes out to do this once-in-a-decade duty. For more information about the census, visit 2020census.gov.
Drownings are the #1 cause of accidental death for young children. Simple safety steps are the best way to prevent these tragedies. Make sure kids learn how to swim. Designate an adult water watcher to watch kids in and around water. Save the phone calls and texts for when the kids are out of the water. Properly fence all pools with fences at least 4 feet high and with self-closing, self-latching gates. When above-ground pools aren't in use, remove the ladders. When pools aren't in use, cover them. Teach kids to stay away from drains, and if a child is missing, check the pool or spa first. Consider the steps you take, then add a few more, because you never know which pool safety step will save a life, until it does. Simple steps save lives. To learn some new ones, visit poolsafely.gov.
Who's most at risk for coronavirus? People over 65, people with underlying medical conditions like heart disease, chronic lung disease, asthma, diabetes, people undergoing cancer treatment, and people with weakened immune systems. What should you do if you or a loved one is at higher risk? Avoid close contact with people, avoid crowds, stay home if you can, wash your hands frequently, learn more ways to protect yourself and others at coronavirus.gov.
Most of our concerns have been on other things here in 2020, but we are in the middle of summer and the risk of mosquito-borne illnesses haven't received as much attention as it has in years past. The state's website has a list of risk levels for different cities and towns to contract Triple E and the West Nile virus. Starting off with Bridgewater along with Rainham, and both are at a low risk of contracting Triple E. Plimpton is at a moderate risk, and the state recently raised the risk level of Middleborough and Carver to high. As of this taping, there have been 16 positive samples across the state, 10 alone in Carver and 4 in Middleborough. The entire state is at a low risk of contracting the West Nile virus, but there have been 13 positive results found in mosquitoes. 9 in Middlesex County, 3 in Suffolk County, and 1 in Norfolk County. For more updates on Triple E and West Nile here in the Bay State, visit the website at the bottom of the screen. July 7th marked the first town council meeting since the town election and the return of District 6 town councilor Bill Wood. Mr. Wood beat out Mark Lindy, who served as a replacement after Wood stepped down from the council at the end of last year. During councilor comments, the returning councilor said the complaints from some about leaving and returning to the council came from fuzzy math from some outside of his district.
We may never know why someone who doesn't live in the precinct is trying to influence how the neighborhood votes. For the past few months, I've heard that I've served 10, 11, or even 12 years on the council. And that's a pretty neat trick to serve for 12 years on a body that's only existed for 9. Bad math didn't stop the outside voices. Even before I pulled papers to run, the outside voices were trying to find ways to stop democracy and stop me from running for the seat. Voices from outside of Precinct 6 tried to influence the election by saying I was unethical and then criticized me for being silent against their unwarranted attacks. The math is simple. Districts 3, 5, and 6 are in the same election cycle. The first time Pete and I were elected, the ballot before the voters said for 3 years. The second time Pete and I were elected, the ballot before the voters said for 3 years. The third time Pete and I were elected, the ballot before the voters said for 3 years. Simple math. 3 plus 3 plus 3 is 9, not 10 or 11 or 12, as the voices from outside of Precinct 6 tried to make the voters believe, using fuzzy math and imaginary numbers. Pete and I are both here legally with our integrity and ethics fully intact. The will of the people inside of Precinct 6 was the only voice that was needed to be heard. I thank them for their support.
A new president and vice president were also named. Sean George, who won his seat in an uncontested race, was voted on as council president, and Matt Rushton will serve as vice president. Mr. George said for Bridgewater to return to what it will be an all-hands-on-deck situation.
We are in very unique times right now. And what I'm trying to do is to keep and continue the leadership of Dennis in his role in working towards a better Bridgewater. What that entails is yet to be determined. We're going to need all hands on deck.
Members of the Bridgewater Citizens for Civility and Respect presented the council with ways to continue promoting inclusion, diversity, and equality. Sam Baumgarten requested that members of the council sign an anti-racism pledge that would make a commitment. That commitment would include showing sensitivity in the use of any racial stereotypes, displaying courage in the presence of racial injustice, and to call out racism when and where it happens. Sam also used Malden as an example for what Bridgewater could do, including declaring racism a public health crisis, funding a full-time director of equality and inclusion and community engagement, and creating a 3-2-1 diversity hiring initiative, which would set numbers for minority members in a pool of applicants.
say that this is a lot of stuff to throw at you, but having seen many of you at recent standouts, I know that your hearts are in it. As many have said, this truly seems to be a turning point in the effort to abolish racism in America. And while Bridgewater is only one small piece of America's fabric, we can make a difference right here. So I urge you to be more than just allies or supportive bystanders, but to really plunge in to help bring about change.
For more information on the pledge or to sign the pledge yourself, you can visit the website that we have for you at the bottom of the screen. Over the past couple of months, there have been standouts in the center of town as residents of Bridgewater and surrounding communities have been letting their voices be heard for social justice. Other peaceful demonstrations have taken place across the country, including in Boston, New York, Los Angeles, and worldwide as well in England. Across the pond, there is also a town called Bridgewater, and much like their American namesake, they too have taken a stand for social justice. Recently, a document was discovered that showed the two communities, spread thousands of miles apart, shared the same ideologies that date back 174 years.
As we know the deadening influence of habit, we think it possible that some among you may acquiesce in an evil which they know not how to cure.
You probably share our horror at a system by which millions of those whom God has made of one blood with ourselves are treated as mere chattels, the victims of lust and cruelty.
Let this voice from the old world rouse you from your despondency.
Bridgewater was the first town in Britain to petition against the slave trade in 1785. But also 100 years earlier, the Monmouth Rebellion, which Bridgewater people were very involved in. People who took part in that rebellion were sent as slaves to the Caribbean. When Frederick Douglass, an actual black American slave, came to speak in their midst, it clearly struck a compassionate chord. People of Bridgewater immediately all signed a letter to send to their descendants in Bridgewater, Massachusetts.
When Bridgewater, Massachusetts received that letter from Bridgewater, England, I think that probably made them realize that, yes, this is bigger than just the United States. People are watching. And I think that ties into the current situation. Black Lives Matter affects everyone. And I think that the letter from England showed, hey, we're watching you.
Black Lives Matter.
Racism is endemic and it's everywhere. The people who wrote the letter in 1846 would have felt that they've done something and achieved something by getting the response from Bridgewater, Massachusetts, and then seen the escalation of the campaign to the Civil War and the ending of slavery. And I think their descendants in Bridgewater today would feel the same, that they're part of a global movement towards a better humanity.
Our thanks to the BBC for putting that report together. There was a Zoom session held between residents in Bridgewater, Massachusetts and Bridgewater, Somerset, England. This focused on social justice talks and to also reflect on that document you heard about in that report. This will be shown on Channel 9 and on our website, btvaccess.com. As you've driven through the Common, you've seen the standouts that were featured in that piece by the BBC. They were originally organized by the Bridgewater Citizens for Civility and Respect. However, over the last month, a new group has helped in taking the charge. The Stand Up for Justice Speaker Series was organized by Teresa Cruz Foley, Jen Rogan, and Jill Sheridan. Back in June, Aaron Fitzgibbons was on hand, and he has more from the gathering in the Common.
The Stand Up for Justice group had their peaceful protests on the Bridgewater Common, with remarks from Cleone Mainville, Michael Dutton, Mark Lindy, and Bishop Tony Branch.
There's this mystery that this movement is against police officers. and that is absolutely not true. What we are against is the brutality against men and women, black people. We're against that brutality and violence, and we're just trying to make change.
One of my favorite quotes is by Elie Wiesel, who wrote the book Night and all sorts of other things. And this is why I'm here. We must always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. Sometimes we must interfere. When human lives are endangered, when human dignity is in jeopardy, national borders and sensitivities become irrelevant. Wherever men or women are persecuted because of their race, religion, or political views, that place must, at that moment, become the center of the universe.
So, what is my responsibility as town manager? It's to make sure every resident and voter of Bridgewater has a voice at the big table. It's to make sure that the table is big enough to handle the wide divergence of thought. And it mostly is to bring people together. Because this town, this cause, our world, only works if we bring people together. So that is my continuing commitment to you.
I am proud to be here today. I'm proud to be with my former colleague, Mark Lindy of the Southeastern Regional School Committee, other people that I know. Cleone, thank you for your great work. The town manager that's doing great work in this town. And I want to say on behalf of most black Americans, because there are some that are feeling differently about our movement. Most black Americans, we love you, and we are glad that you are in this with us. Do you believe that?
Reporting for BTV, this is Aaron Fitzgibbons.
For more information on this group, just search Stand Up for Justice Bridgewater on Facebook. Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker announced that he has extended the pause on evictions and foreclosures to October 17th. This law was put into place back in April as a way to keep tenants and homeowners in their homes during the governor's state of emergency. Originally, this was set to expire on August 18th, but as we said, this was extended out 2 months. Although tenants are strongly encouraged to continue making payments, there was a $20 million fund launched for low-income households that need help making payments. Other elements of this law include landlords being prevented from sending eviction notices, limiting court actions on non-essential evictions, and it also allows landlords to use the last month's rent to pay for certain expenses, though not as a replacement rent payment after the tenant gets notified. Coming up after the break, concerts during a pandemic. We'll introduce you to a couple of artists who continue to show their musical talents through the small screen.
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made her college years happen. Opening that education savings account when she was little. Spearheading a campus tour. And another, and another, and another, and another. Bam! Deciphering financial aid. She was like, what? And now she's like, you aced planning for college. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
The COVID-19 pandemic dealt a serious blow to the entertainment industry this year, turning off the lights in thousands of venues, but thanks to modern technology and an amazing spirit, the show has gone on. Jeff Fowler explains in this report.
As our calendar flipped to 2020, the entertainment industry was benefiting from an economic boom. The new year rang in with tremendous excitement and promise. And then, at the flip of a switch, our nation paused as we began a long fight against COVID-19. The spread of the novel coronavirus forced concert venues to shut down for what could be close to a year. But thanks to modern technology and the efforts of so many talented musicians, the show has gone on. Members of Juventus New Music Ensemble have kept the music playing with their Stay Home series, featuring talents from across the region, including Central Square Congregational Church's own Minister of Music, Julia Scott Carey. Julia is one of the founding members of Juventus, which was created just over 15 years ago while she and her friends were undergrads.
We were all composers and performers, and we were looking for more opportunities for young composers especially to hear their works performed live. So we've always focused on performing the compositions of emerging composers and people who are currently living, mostly in this country, but some from abroad. And it's really, really special to work with composers and get to know them, have them be a part of the rehearsal process.
Scott Carey knows plenty about the rehearsal process. In fact, working as a rehearsal pianist has paved the way towards an impressive resume.
The biggest part of my career is being a rehearsal pianist for choruses, because every chorus has a pianist that works for them in rehearsals and has a very close relationship with the conductors. Sometimes I get to perform with the choruses, or sometimes I'm preparing them to sing with a full orchestra, so I have to imitate the sound of the orchestra in my playing. I've been very fortunate to work with the Tanglewood Festival Chorus and the Boston Symphony Children's Choir for the past few years, and I've rehearsed with them to prepare to sing with the Boston Symphony and the Boston Pops.
As one can imagine, working with the Pops can lead to some impressive connections.
I've met a lot of really fascinating people through that, especially the conductors of those orchestras, Andres Nelson's, Keith Lockhart, and James Burton, and it's amazing to work with them and all the wonderful guest artists that come through.
Though many can play the piano, Julia has the unique ability to communicate meaning through the keys.
I do try to think about the meaning behind everything I play. I research the composers and the text, if it's a music with text, and the history of the music. All that, I think, adds to my knowledge of the meaning of the music.
And her intense appreciation for the ivory began at a very young age.
I always had a piano in my house growing up from the time I was an infant. And I would play around on it from a very young age. I started actually writing down my own compositions before I knew how proper music notation worked. So I was just a toddler at the time. And then as soon as I started taking piano lessons at age 5, I learned normal music notation very quickly, and I've been a musician ever since then.
During this pandemic, we also learned and shared an appreciation and love for our moms during a special music presentation.
My own mother passed away on the eve of Mother's Day 9 years ago, so the holiday has a very deep emotional meaning for me. But I was very excited putting this program together because I found pieces of music that related to the theme of motherhood. Some of them were older compositions from 100 years ago or so, and some of them were brand new compositions. The most substantial piece that I performed in terms of its length and its emotional depth probably was a piece by Delete Warsaw, First Love Song, and it was about her emotions the first time that her child said, "I love you" to her. And as a mother myself, that was something that I could definitely relate to, so I really enjoyed playing that composition.
Julia has partnered with BTV's Paul Holmes to produce several virtual concerts over the last few months, including a Pentecost performance of pieces from British composer Ralph Vaughan Williams, whose works can be found in hymnals to this day. As one can imagine, sacred music is something that Julia holds close to her heart.
Sacred music is a very large part of my life, not just through church, but through my work as a choral accompanist, because so many of the large chorus and orchestra pieces are based on texts from a Christian tradition. A number of them are sacred compositions. Music is a way that I am able to connect with my spirituality and to share praise and joy.
Julia and her colleagues have been keeping the faith and trying to spread joy in what has been a very tough year for her industry.
This is an extremely devastating time for people in the performing arts industry. In our lifetimes, at least, we've never seen entire concert cycles wiped out across the world. It was shocking to all of us for months to just see concerts we had counted on for months or even years wiped off our calendar. This is also a time for innovation and regrowth and rebuilding. and a lot of artistic reckoning within the musical community. People have been turning to new technologies, doing live stream concerts, and I think we're going to see more and more of that over the course of this next year, and the technology is going to become stronger and stronger. There's a lot of fear among musicians right now for the future, but there's also a lot of hope, and I, for one, am very excited to see where this new stage will lead us.
There are some exciting plans in store for the remaining summer months for both Juventus and Central Square. Julia Scott Carey will return to the piano in July for a solo concert featuring a tribute to Latin music. In August, she teams up with Kelly Hollis for a performance highlighting Boston composers. And on August 2nd, through Central Square, Julia honors the Justice Choir Songbook. This is Jeff Fowler reporting.
All right, thanks, Jeff. On the updates, we told you that BTV has begun airing encore presentations of the Music Alley concert series, which have gone virtual this year on Music Alley Presents. Every Thursday night during the summertime, you can tune in and watch artists perform for free on the Bridgewater Music Alley Facebook page. I had a chance to talk to the first performer on Music Alley Presents, Abigail Vale, about some of the differences between performing in front of a crowd and performing in front of a cell phone.
I guess the difference between I really it's not that I dislike it, but I like it a lot less when I'm doing the virtual performances versus the in-person performances. You would think that being in front of a crowd of people, I think a lot of people think of that and they're like, oh my God, and it's enough to give them heart palpitation. But for me, I feel that at least when you're performing in front of a crowd, you're able to see people's reactions. You get to see if they're smiling, if they're engaged, if they like it. And online, it's a lot harder to get that experience. So you start to feel really self-conscious, like, you get in your own head a lot easier, I think. So that's kind of the difference. Although online also, the added benefit is that people are able to go back and watch if they otherwise wouldn't be able to have, watched it at that time that was aired. And, you get an audience that, of people who maybe wouldn't have the time in their schedule to, go out of their house or wouldn't have to drive to see you.
And you can watch the full interview with Abigail on our BTV Facebook page, and you can watch Music Alley Presents on Channel 9 and on btvaccess.com. And we leave you with a song performed on the program by Abigail. This is her original song, The Hero, a song that she dedicated to the frontline workers, one of those workers, a nurse, her mom. Thanks for watching this edition of the program. I'm John Luck.
She puts on her shoes that she leaves by the door. Wears the mask she wore last week and the week before. She feels tired and worried and out of control. And people keep saying that she's a hero. One patient is 30 and one's 82. You get to live if you got the most living to do. She has so much to give, but they need so much more. And people keep saying that she's a hero. Well, she doesn't see it, just does what she can. he died. She's pounding his chest, she's erasing the time. When she looks at the child, she keeps seeing her own. She's praying to God that she'll be his hero. But she doesn't see it, just does what she can. Drives down to a war zone at 7 a.m. Being strong for the weak is all she's ever known. And people keep saying that she's a hero. Yeah, people keep saying that she's a hero. Kicks off her shoes 'cause they're dirty as hell. Then she lies to her family, says work went pretty well. And they can't understand, but somehow they all know that it's true when they